Alright, so number 4. What does it ask for? Number 4.
The hypotenuse.
The hypotenuse. So where is the hypotenuse? Is that 4 or 6 of the unknown?
Unknown.
The unknown. Okay, so this is the hypotenuse. Right? So, remember, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? And c is always the right angle. So c is always the hypotenuse. Does that make sense? So this is c. A and b, it doesn't matter. This could be a. Then this is a. This could be b. And so this is b. Okay? So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that's the Pythagorean Theorem. Right? And then you plug in the numbers. You'll go, okay, 4 squared plus 6 squared is equal to c squared. And 4 squared is what? 16 plus 6 squared, which is 36, is equal to c squared, right? So, 16 and 36, what is that?
52.
52?
That's my charger.
Okay? So that's 52 is equal to c squared. Alright? So this was, the first step was what? When we plug something in, what's that called? Substitution. Okay? When we do the squaring, what's that called? Simplification. When we add things, what's that called? Simplification. Alright? But when I square root both sides to get rid of the square, right? What's the opposite of a square? The opposite of a square is a square root, right? So that means that the square root of 52 is equal to c. Right? And that's the answer. But are we done?
No.
No. Is that reduced?
No.
No. So how do we reduce it? 52. What goes into it? Smallest number? 2.
Sure.
Okay? Always start small. Work your way up. Okay? That's 26, right? 2 go into that? How many times? 13?
Yes, sir.
Does 2 go into that? Not nicely. What about 3? 5? 7? 11? 13? Okay. 1 time. When you get to 1, you're done, right? So how many pairs do you have?
2.
1 pair of 2's, right? So that changes into a 2. And what stays in the square root?
13.
A 13. So, what is c? 2 square root 13. What do we call that? Simplify. What's the green called when we square rooted both sides? What's that called when you do it to both sides of the equal sign? It's a property of equality, but it's not division. We're doing, what's that called? Square root, right? So it's the square root property of equality. See the difference? Still the same thing. Addition property, subtraction property. Multiplication, division. Now we're in square rooting. Okay, PIMDOS, parentheses, exponents. That's an exponent, right? It's a 1/2 exponent. Okay? Alright. So there you go. C is 2 square roots of 13. Alright, what's the missing angles? Now this is the part I haven't shown you yet. We got till 10, right? Why are you guys all rambunctious? Alright, let's slow it down a little bit. Remember this? SOHCAHTOA. So, sine is equal to the opposite over hypotenuse, right? Now check this out. This is the cool part. When we do what's called the arc sine, or what some books refer as the inverse sine, okay? So the inverse sine and the arc sine are the same thing, alright? So let me show you the difference. On some phones, it's going to look like this. A sine, okay? So the A sine of the opposite over hypotenuse is equal to theta. What you're doing there is you're finding the angle by using the ratio. Because if the sine of the angle equals the ratio, then the inverse of that will equal the angle. You see what's happening there? Okay, now that's one way of looking at it. The same thing, but a different way on different calculators. It looks like this. Sine inverse of opposite over hypotenuse. It's the same thing. Okay? It just looks different. And in fact, on your like Note 8s and stuff like that, what's that called? It's not iPhone, but they call it a different other style of phone. Android, right? So on your Android, typically it's gonna show you this sign negative, and then when you actually hit enter, up in the box it'll go A sign. So it actually uses both of them. Okay. iPhones are Polish notation, so it doesn't use either. It uses just one of them, and then you have to do it backwards. Okay. So this is what we're doing. If I want to know